want to see you coming back in here with dirty jerseys. I want to see you coming back in here with bloodstained jerseys, lads.
Look at anybody going sitting up and paint with those boys after that.
And the referee is looking around and acting of Mickey.
Tell the children to play tennis or something.
If they want to play tennis, go and play tennis.
Hello and welcome to the so-called Weaker Podcast, Balls.ie's weekly GAA show. It's Mick McCarthy here alongside Gavin Cooney.
How are you?
And Mark Farrelly.
This is a joke.
The third banana of the podcast.
You could just say you're doing it because it's alphabetical order, but you don't even make up an excuse.
Third banana.
Oh,
it's a hierarchical thing, is it?
Delighted to be back with us today. We've been away for what seems like forever. It's actually only been a week, but what also feels like it's been away forever has been Intercounty GAA. But it is back.
In POG form.
It is back in Exiles form this weekend as the championship gets underway. Two huge games in the Connacht Senior Football Championship between London and Sligo and New York and Leitrim. Two of those particular so-called counties not actually in Connacht, but that doesn't matter.
But they're all in the so-called weaker county bracket.
They are. It's a big weekend for us guys. The championship sort of gets going in a sort of a slow kind of paddle, I suppose, into the championship for most people. But for us, we're starting at the top. This is what we live for here.
Yeah.
Is a New York game, a London game, a Sligo game, a Leitrim game.
very
We've got them
excited
all
about
on the
them
same
all.
weekend.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to go to one of them. We
Gavin?
should. Why didn't we ask? Could they fly us over for the so-called Weaker Podcast to New York to do a live podcast from there? Feck it, why didn't we do that?
Who's they?
I don't know. The powers that be.
Who
The
are
internet. Isn't it the internet that
New
gives
York
us money?
sponsors? Budweiser.
I think it's Budweiser.
It used to be Budweiser anyway. Yeah, when they
That's the
played.
number one question you always get asked as well when you work on the internet in our kind of jobs. Is all people going, now would you get to go to games? Would you get into all them big games? You would.
I had a
And
taxi
you'd
driver
tell-
ask me a different question yesterday. He asked me, most people ask that, but that's the first question. He asked, do many people come to you looking for tips on horses? And I said, well, no, because they know that we don't really know anything. And then he had this long diatribe about how he emailed Balls.ie before looking for horse tips and we didn't even respond. To the gaffer at Balls.ie.
Well, if you're looking for some soccer tips, I've got them up on site at the minute with our football fourfold, thanks to LeoVegas.com. You can check that out on Facebook this evening, being Thursday evening, for the weekend's action.
But if you really want to get in touch with us, email us on that same thegaffer at balls.ie and ask us some questions about the so-called weaker counties, and we're sure to get back to you. Not necessarily with any particular knowledge or anything like that, but definitely with a high level of interest. Also, while you're at it, while you're sending us an email, you should just go on to another window in your tabs there and go in and subscribe to this podcast, rate it, and leave a comment, and that'll really help.
Yeah,
We're
definitely.
sharing a feed at the moment with another so-called Champions podcast that Mark Farley's gone off on a solo run.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Without me and you, Gavin.
I've
Can
done
you
the
tell
dirt.
us about this? Because, I mean, it's with Dublin, is that right? So
No,
they
it's
obviously can't
with
be...
Subaru. The first one was with Dublin, though. It's a Champions podcast about, I've done the dirt on the weaker counties. It's actually the complete opposite of this podcast.
Oh,
it's a
right.
podcast where we only speak to people who have won All Ireland's and ask them, what does it take to make a champion? So the first one was with the Dublin footballers, with Paddy Andrews and Mike Simons. We were up in Monaghan. They were at the Rally School of Ireland in Monaghan with Subaru, and they were racing cars around tracks. So in the middle of all that, they took some time to chat to us, to myself and Damien Donoghue, about what it takes to become a champion. So it's maybe, it's one of them things we can celebrate the weaker counties here, and then in the evening go off and listen to how to get out of being a weaker county.
I don't
we've
know,
been
I
left
don't know
behind,
how I
Gavin.
feel about this bigamy here. I'm
Too timing you.
I'm sticking with the so-called weaker counties.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the so-called weaker counties as well, and it's a big weekend for them, as I mentioned, because, as we said, London opened their championship against Sligo, a game they have a serious chance of winning, I would think, and we're going to hear later on in the show from Liam Gavahan?
This is one of the ones that's caused debate, because I would say Gavahan. Yourself, Peter, saying
There's a
Gavahan.
GH, all right.
And then
Gavahan.
Morris, who interviewed him, has a completely different pronunciation.
Oh, go on.
His is like
Gavahan.
Gavan or Gavahan or
Oh, yeah.
Gavahan.
Morris
It's
is
a-
from
it's a
Galway, though, so I
thing.
wouldn't take any notice of him.
Yeah,
But
the other thing just on that is, and it actually literally yesterday evening I was listening to a podcast, it really annoyed me. Since when did people start pronunciation?
Never.
That's
They've
really
never
rare.
done it.
I'm hearing it
Again,
all
this
the
is-
time. I'm honest to God, I'm
From
hearing
who?
much more.
The little voices
I'm
in your
not
head,
going to.
or
I'm
is somebody
not,
external?
no, other
saying
people.
it?
I'm not going to name anybody, but it's another website who have another podcast, and it's not about sport.
Is it Joe Rogan?
No,
Oh, no.
it's an Irish website. They have a podcast about films and stuff. It's like the movie show or the something.
Anyway, Liam Gavagon is the London captain, and most interestingly, I think people will agree when you hear him, is a native Londoner.
Mm.
And maybe it's because he's a Londoner that he loves London town so much that he's going to knock Sligo out of the Connacht Championship this
and
weekend.
You may remember in previous edition of this podcast, Shirley Manley, Kieran Deely was on, the London manager, and he did speak about that being one of the ambitions is to get native Londoners playing the games, and obviously that's happening.
Yeah, so that'll be really interesting to hear from, as we mentioned, Morris, who gets mentioned on this podcast every week but rarely gets on it. Did that interview yesterday, so we'll hear from that. And then later on as well, more work that we haven't done that somebody else has done for us is that PJ was down at the Leinster Championship launch in Trim, County Meath. West East Mead, I was told that's where Trim is earlier. Anyway, but he was at that and he spoke to loads of people who we'll be hearing from. But today we're going to hear a little bit from the Louth manager, Pete McGrath. We talked about Louth a good bit since we started this pod. They were the
whipping
cannon
boys.
fodder of Division 2, where they got no points and were really, really struggling. So it'll be interesting to hear what legend of the game, down All-Ireland winning manager Pete McGrath, has to say about how things are going there.
Yeah, it's his first job outside of Ulster, isn't it? Am I right
he
to
was
say
Fermanagh manager
last
yeah,
year?
I'm trying to think
last year.
I think it was his first
Um,
job. Yeah, and he's
yeah.
younger than Mickey Hart. That's what Paul Fitzpatrick of Anglo Celta always points out. Is that you think Pete McGrath, because he won in Ireland so long ago with Down, and the fact that he has that air of GA nobility about him is very old, but he's actually younger than Mickey Hart.
Mickey Hart reminds me, by the way, before we go any further, of my massive journalistic scoop in the last couple of weeks.
Go on.
The man who preceded Mickey Hart as Tyrone manager they were co-managers, Art McCrory and Eugene McKenna. The latter is going to the royal wedding.
Yes.
He got invited.
Why?
His wife Bernie, thanks to her work with the Castle Caulfield Horticultural Society. That society, as we all know, is a massive runaway success. It won the Ulster in Bloom and the Britain in Bloom titles, and has been recognised internationally at the Communities in Bloom competition in Canada. So as a result, she's among 1,200 community leaders who've been selected to watch the bridegroom and guests arrive at the ceremony.
Oh,
at
I
Windsor
thought
Castle.
there was only like 40 people going to this and that Eugene McKenna was one of them.
No, so
I thought it was a tiny wedding.
oh no, sorry, I don't know if they're getting full access because they're only letting in one journalist apparently to the royal wedding.
Okay.
Patrick
I've been
J.
right
Adams
across
going,
this.
do you know?
Who?
Patrick J. Adams.
Who's
no?
Patrick J. Adams?
The man that plays Meghan Markle's love interest in Suits.
I don't
They're
know.
the most insufferable couple in the history of
I thought he
television.
was going to say something else there, Gavin.
I have to say, yeah. No, so I mean, in
Don't say
terms
that
of
about a future princess, Mark.
in terms of being invited to the royal wedding, there will be about 2,500 people standing outside Windsor Castle watching the bridegroom and guests.
So Eugene
arrive.
McKenna has been invited to go all the way over to England and stand outside a church.
Yeah, it's still an honour, like, is it?
Honour me arse. But anyway, fair play to him. I hope he enjoys it.
For more Bloom related content, I've got some more Bloom stuff coming up and around the so-called week or club month / counties in a few minutes.
As I was just going to say, Mark, that we're going to get to Liam Gavagan / Gavahan / whatever, the London captain in a while, and we're going to I'm going to hear from Pete McGrath. But first, I want you to take us around the so-called weaker counties, please.
I shall. We shall look at. I have a bigger, better one coming up, but just on the topic of Bloom, let's stick with that.
Yeah.
Port Leash at the weekend. Sorry, not Port Leash. What am I talking about? I've got two Leash stories here. I want to talk about Slieve Bloom and Mr. Tom Delaney, Senior. That is.
Okay.
At 54 years young, he played a Division 5 football game for Slieve Bloom at the weekend alongside his sons Tom Jr., Padraig and Dara against Mount Rath. They lost 4-4 to 1-6, but I just thought it was worth to mention. It's in, oh God, I can't remember now the name of the Leash. Leash Today, is it? It's the Leash website.
Yeah, Leash Today.
Leash Today. They have a good interview with the son. Tom, basically, the Division 5 game, it's 13 aside if you don't have enough players, but Slieve Bloom only had 12. So Tom decided to stand in goals for the first 20 minutes or so until somebody else showed up. And what I love is the son, rating his performance, said, I did a good enough job. Yeah, he did a great job. I think he only conceded the one goal. So apparently was a success. But just shout out to Tom.
I bet he was wearing jeans or something. He hardly tugged out full.
I'd say someone probably had spare shorts or something for him.
Maybe.
But
playing with your three sons, though, that's like one of the great GAA traditions that I hope never goes. Is a father. You know, there's a story in my family of my granddad was once taken off in a match for my uncle, or maybe it was my dad. I'm not sure anyway, and was like absolutely bullying. It wasn't the good news story that it would be portrayed to be like on a podcast like this or in the paper or anything like that. He was coming off going, they're taking me off for fucking him. Absolutely furious.
I like that though. I like that competitive edge. But we have to move
45 at the time.
We have to go on to the big scoop we've finally gotten on around the so-called weaker counties. We've been teasing this for ages, and we're going to tease it out a little bit more in terms of that we got a full interview with him. But this week we're going to play just a little bit of it. PJ at the Leinster launch this week, he chatted to John Heslin about the fodder crisis.
Just about. No, it was tight. We were lucky enough to get a bale or two. Came in from England, and then grass came there now, so cattle are out, thank God. But it was a stressful time, you know. And sure, boys in the county wouldn't have a clue, you know. There's a couple of farmers there, but it was tight now, and there's still a lot of people around the country that are tight, you know. And look, you're dealing with all that sort of stuff, and then trying to come in and clear your head and get ready for training where you could be doing a hip of running or something, like, you know what I mean? So it can be challenging. But look, everyone has their own thing, like, you know. While the fodder crisis was as serious as things get, it was outside the door, you know, outside the house door, and you know, once it stays out there, you'll cope, you know.
Is there more that the government could have done to help farmers in that situation?
I think we've gone off topic here now, but look, I suppose that all the agricultural advice over the last number of years would be trying to prepare your fodder for as long as possible, you know. You're preparing for and look, you have to plan for the abnormal year, you know. You can't work off the best year, and I think that's over the last number of years. I think that people might be trying to work off the best year. Okay, weather's going to be fantastic in February, you can let everything out. I only need silage in February, but at the end of the day you need to be working off your average year, and if you keep working off your average year, you'll be hoping that you're building up the supply. On the good year you've extra, and that's in the pit there in reserve for when the crucial time comes, you know. And we have our extraordinary year. So you think back, we'd bad year 2018, bad year in 2013, you know, so 8 years ago. These things are happening, like, you know what I mean. It's time for people to start learning from it, but it's not always that easy, you know. People are driving high stocking rates, trying to drive profit, low margin on farm. Only way to maximise your margin at the moment, people are being told, is to drive your output on that farm, because on this given land, how much can you produce on it? But it comes back, and it's a costly year now for a lot of boys, so we're going to feel the brunt of it right through until next year, when they're making poor silage this year because it had to graze silage ground. There's whole knock-on effects. Back to your question, could the government have done more? Look, they couldn't tell the future. There was people saying in August we're going to have a fodder shortage. They made money available for certain things. Look, there's only so much the government can do as well, you know, but I presume everyone had tried their best, you know.
So that's Westmeath legend, one of the greats of the current game in John Heslin, not talking about football at all.
No,
we're talking about fodder.
I think it might be time for you to take your leave of this podcast now, because I don't think you'll ever get to utter a sentence with more happiness than John Heslin talking about the fodder crisis.
No,
the so-called farming podcast.
Peter chatting to him, and like Heslin's there going, we're going a bit off topic here. Peter, yep, we are. We're going to talk about it anyway. But Heslin was more than happy to chat about it.
I hope we'll hear more from John Heslin in the coming weeks. In fact, I know we will.
We definitely
before
will.
Westmeath will play, and we'll actually talk about them and their chances in the Leinster Championship. But the fodder crisis is real, lads. There's no point in. I heard Brian Dobson talking about it on the radio there the other morning, and he sounded like a man who hadn't said fodder that much in his life. But
we were saying that people keep saying fodder on
but it's
national
fodder,
airways.
isn't it? Like, I mean, as
it's
in
fodder.
F-A-T-H-E-R, isn't it?
It's pronounced fodder.
Yeah.
But it's fodder, really. Fodder is the two D's is the way it's pronounced. But the lads don't really know any synonym for it on Morning Ireland, because they're not entirely sure what it is. So they're like, there's a crisis about fodder. Do you have enough fodder? Tell me that, John. What fodder?
I imagine a lot of our listeners
hasn't have a clue.
Myself
either.
and Gavin also don't have a clue, but we're okay.
Anyway.
We're okay not being educated on that.
I'll move it back to sport then.
Good man.
And I want to go to Louth, who will feature later on in the show, obviously with the interview with Pete
It's where
McGrath.
this was all linked.
But it actually is just completely random.
I know,
all these
I know.
counties. Yeah, but
Deletion a minute.
I want to give a shout out to St. Fecken's GAA club.
Sorry, can we have that again, please, Mark?
St. Fecken's.
St. Fecken's.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Fechin. And you're kind of, but you're burying the lead here because St. Fecken's are in Termonfeckin in County Louth, and they have a competition at the minute which is called Win a Feckin House. Where they're giving away a house, €100 raffle ticket to win a house in Termonfeckin. It's on the web. The website is called winafeckinhouse.ie. So you can visit that if you want to enter a competition to win a feckin house.
Is this open to everyone now?
No,
Like,
but I
it's
presume
open to
it's
like
open to
US
anyone.
vulture funds and everything.
Yeah, whoever wants to.
You know when you start playing football or hurling at around kind of like the under 8s and you're going, if you're playing an away match against St. Fecken's, you're having the time of your life on the bus to that match.
Unbelievable.
Oh, without a doubt. But that caught me eye around the internet this week. I just saw someone go, a Loud GA club are giving away a feckin house. And I was like, that's why are they saying
They
feckin? Well, it's a house in Termonfeckin. So shout out to St. Fecken's.
What else have we got?
We've got Wexford. They're going to be wearing a special commemorative jersey in their opening round of the Leinster Championship. Not this weekend, but the weekend after.
I love this.
This is amazing.
They won, was it 4 Irelands in the 19-teens, or whatever you call it? So it's 1918 was their last one. It's 100 years since. So they're going to wear the same kind of jersey that they wore in 1918.
I used to criticise the whole yellow bellies thing in Wexford before they went for the full purple look, because I thought that it should have been the other way around traditionally, because the 96 hurlers, say that jersey, and all the way through the 90s had purple on the bottom and yellow on the top. But it turns out it's completely wrong, because this 100 years ago jersey is just a sliver of purple on the shoulders and then yellow all the rest of it. It's really lovely.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's up on site, obviously. You can check it out. We have loads more to get. It's a very busy around the so-called weaker counties this week.
Keep going, so.
I'm going to go back to Laois. And on a more serious
I
note,
told you we were going back to Laois because I know this story.
Yeah. And you know this story, Gavin, because you wrote about it this time last week.
Oh, really? Yeah.
This was from LaoisToday.ie as well.
Yeah, it was also LaoisToday.ie. It's not as funny a story. It's actually much more serious. It was just that, but it's not that serious. It sounds very grave. But Port Laois beat Stradbally in the league, in the Division 1 league in Laois last week, 10-16 to 6 points. Which is worth noting just how unbelievable is Port Laois have just hoovered up.
I liked the line from the Laois Day match report. It was like, the game was effectively over after 3 minutes, by which time Port Laois had found the net 3 times. Scored 10 goals in it. They've won. So they did lose the first round of that league to, I can't remember the team, I'm sorry, because they
St.
didn't have
Joseph's or some Saint something.
Because they didn't have their county players, but ever since they've got the county players back, they won 4 games in a row by an average score of like 20 points or something. So it's the dark side of the of having club players available in April.
But there's actually a serious issue there with Port Laois, and it's something that really I feel like the Laois County Board, if nobody else, should do something about, because Port Laois is a town. It's like Dublin, like, you know, to the rest of the country. It's like, I think there's probably more people in that catchment area than there is in the rest of the county together, and there's only one GA club, and it's ridiculous. And do you know what, it actually really holds back footballers, that it holds back people in the town as well. Because what chance have you got? You have to get, basically, like, you have to be a county player to get on the Port Laois team.
Yeah, I think they've won 10 of the last 11 Laois championships, and the only team to interrupt that run was, in fact, Stradbally, who they just put 10 goals past a week or so ago. So are we splitting Port Laois? Is that the answer?
Yeah, like, I mean, I know that's a funny thing to say, and, you know, we're talking about Dublin and county levels and all, but there's no reason that there's only one. Any town that size in the rest of the country has 2 or 3 GA clubs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So yes,
and maybe Port Laois will always be the top team, but at least have an option out there for someone else, you know.
It looks like everyone. It's pretty much that every club in the Laois Senior Championship is a so-called weaker club in our eyes.
Yeah.
So we're fighting their fight.
They've won 32 Laois championships.
It's madness. But we're going now. Our last stop on around the so-called weaker counties is New York and America. We've gone across the Atlantic to. Just note that Corofin were over there, reigning Ireland champions. And this is, if you want a teaser for this weekend, Corofin played New York in a challenge match. New York won by 13 points, with Armagh's Jamie Clark scoring the majority of it. So that's going to be really interesting this weekend to see the effect that Clark can have on this team. And I mean, I think a lot of people are putting money on New York to beat Leitrim. I don't know if that's because they
Including
genuinely definitely will, or they're all just kind of buying into the narrative of wouldn't it be great if New York won that game.
I feel like last year they got so close that it just became almost a talking point that they were going to win next year and that they had Leitrim, and the evidence, we didn't need much more evidence than just the fact that we decided this time last year they were going to win. But yeah,
Jamie Clark
adding Jamie Clark to it.
well.
Jamie Clark would be, if you take out Mayo and Galway, Jamie Clark would be the best player in the Connacht Championship.
Yeah, but you're taking out a lot of players there, and you're still looking at a few Roscommon guys. I don't know. I think Jamie Clark is better
than
Merton,
the
Conor
majority
Delaney,
of
Kieran
the Mayo.
Murtagh.
I'd say he's better than all of them. I say take out Mayo and Galway because I don't want to even have to go through whether he's the 6th or 7th best. Like, I mean, he's still better than most of them as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they can probably beat. By the way, New York can probably beat Leitrim. It depends on, not to go to France in the Six Nations, but it depends on what Leitrim side turns up, because they're either going to kick 5 points or 315.
Oh, that's
a good point.
People
and they could
check
kick
their league
315 and hammer
record if
New
you're not a
York.
regular listener.
Yeah. So however much they kicked in the last game, it's going to be the opposite.
I'm really looking forward to it. That leads us into. Are you finished around the so-called week?
I have one more, but it doesn't really belong in that. It's a different sport as well.
Just tell us what's going on.
So, former Sligo player Daniel Davey is now a nutritionist with Leinster Rugby.
And the Dubs.
And the Dubs as well. And he played for Ballyboden, did you say, Gavin? So, Gavin interviewed him this week. And this is obviously Tadhg Furlong, a good stalwart of Wexford underage GAA.
Yeah, hurling and football.
Yeah, Daniel was just describing what rugby players eat. And he was talking about how Tadhg has a bit of an addiction to potatoes. And I thought we could not let this podcast go without playing that clip.
Any athlete, it doesn't matter who they are, they want to understand what to eat. So I will sit down with them, have one-to-one sessions, go through their food diary. So they will tell me what they're currently doing. And it could be a case that they're having, Tadhg Furlong loves his potatoes. He might be having 3 potatoes or 6 potatoes or 10 potatoes. And I'll say, Tadhg, you're having too many potatoes today, because that is just an overconsumption of what you need from potatoes. Yeah. You can do that before a game, because potatoes are really good source of energy, and that's where we get the fuel from. But days where you're sitting on the couch, you don't need 10 spuds. Yeah. That's kind of how you make it much more individual.
Is it hard work to get Tadhg Furlong to stop eating his potatoes?
Yes. Yeah, no, it is. He it's like a potato addiction. But he, Tadhg is somebody that you can have fantastic conversations with, because he's from the country and he appreciates food, and if you put good food in front of Tadhg, he'd enjoy not just potatoes. I think he's in Dublin now a while, so his palate has expanded.
There's a nice little rhythm there, though. Daniel just kept saying the word potato.
He really did.
Really quite beautiful.
I do understand you including that clip here, as I'd imagine that most people who listen to the so-called Weaker podcast have a bit of an addiction to potatoes as well.
Definitely.
So
love a good spud. They're great for energy. Just like I'd always eat spuds now on a match day.
A big plate of spuds, yeah.
I find rice isn't good enough, and pasta leaves you a bit lethargic, and it's difficult to eat. It's very like, if you're not hungry and you're just forcing food down you, pasta's very hard. You're always like, I'm never going to finish this.
And what type of spud would you have now? Mash?
Oh, any type. Mash.
Oh, any type.
Baby potatoes are mashed, but not
raw
like mash,
from the grain,
creamy mash, floury mash.
Chips with clay.
Chips, yeah, if you want chips, yeah. Well, it wouldn't be the best before you go out to play now, but
sure, it depends what way you make them, though.
Yeah, true.
Make them in one of those, what do you call those new fandangle things that gets all the oil off them?
An oven?
I don't know. Do we want to go down the blind alley that is naming our top 5 potato-based products?
I don't know.
Do you
I
like
think
a
so.
good waffle?
Potato waffles be up there for me.
Yeah.
Potato croquettes.
Good to now before a match.
Potato croquettes.
I'd have waffles before a match as well. If you're trying to squeeze in a little meal, have like waffles, beans, and chicken or something. Very easy to eat.
I think my top 5 potato-based products are mash, crisps, potato croquettes, waffles, and then probably chips. Actually,
you gotta be.
In what order is that now?
Oh,
are you separating?
I'm not putting them in any particular
separating
order.
Like chips and French fries or crinkle chips?
Yeah. No, I would.
Which ones are number 5?
I mean, what are crinkle chips?
There are crinkly ones.
Like crisps, like the heavily rinsed crisps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, with crisps. I mean, they're all the same. I'm not separating like Walkers from Tato. And
no, chips. I'm talking about though.
I don't know. I'm going to go. There's social variety. You can have wet spuds, dry spuds, boiled spuds, mashed spuds, fried spuds, roast spuds,
Fried spuds underrated.
new spuds, old spuds,
Garlic
peeled
potatoes.
spuds,
Sorry, can I get
garlic
rid?
spuds,
Can I get rid of chips
cheese
for
spuds,
garlic potatoes?
baked spuds. Yes, you can. I'm going to go with crisps, normal spuds, baby spuds,
What do you mean normal
chips.
spuds? Just on their own, like out of.
like peeled or in the skin, depending on the time of year. Just boil it, you have it for dinner. Like if you were getting just a normal dinner at home, you go,
Not mashed.
do you know, old style spuds? They're mashed, but they're not like
But
a
then they're
load of
mashed
cream and a
potatoes,
load
like.
of celery and a load of all that shit in it. It's just, floury spuds. They might not be mashed.
Celery.
They might be just normal potatoes, like new seasoned potatoes, and you boil them in the skins, and you get them in the skin, you have to peel them yourself afterwards.
Bit of butter and salt.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
all. So that kind of thing, depending on the year. So they're either mashed or not, depending on the year. Crisps, chips.
In leap years, mashed them.
Time of year. Try to the time of year. Anyway, we've got completely off topic here. We haven't actually. The topic was
I'm not
time
go-
for an addiction to potatoes. So we're
I'm not going to
entirely
go
off
through
topic.
my top 5, but roast potatoes have been horribly underrepresented in those two top 5s, I have to say.
Oh, I don't know.
Listeners, do get
Roast
in touch
potato
with your.
With some like roast beef sort of juice on them.
Yeah, listeners, do get in touch with your top 5 potato-based products.
Please do. And
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 don't
most-
accuse
most
us.
Don't
surprising
tag Tyke
trying for the
Furlong.
line.
Most surprising and exciting places to find potatoes. Because if you get
In
a
the
wrap
ground.
in a Greek takeaway, they will always put sneaky chips into the wrap. So there's a nice, surprising and exciting place to find potatoes.
We need the championship to come back.
Yeah. You should put roast.
No, enough potatoes.
Okay. It's only when I talk that you tell me it's enough. Right.
I would love it if Cork beat them. Also, can we talk about the fact that we're just walking out of the stand? One of them turned to the other and went, Ashford's great to be back in Division 1.
I've kept really quiet, but I'll tell you something. He went down in my estimation when he said that. We have not resorted to that.
Let Cork beat them and then Cameron and Tipperary go up.
But I'll tell you can tell him now if you're watching it, we're still fighting for this title.
And I'll tell you now, they're still fighting for this title, and they've got to go Cork and get something.
And he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something.
I think they're at home against Cork.
We just say things like that.
Against Cork there.
And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
I would love it if Cork beat them.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
As we mentioned, London versus Sligo this weekend gets along with New York and Leitrim, gets the championship underway. Thank God. It means we'll be talking about football and hurling from now on, between now and September. No more potato talk. But Liam Gavigan we're going to go with Gavigan for now and for the rest of the pod, is the London captain and is actually a native of London. So very interested to hear from him. Morris Brosnan caught up with him yesterday.
I think after the league campaign, we had like the Easter weekend off, and we come back 5 weeks now, and training's been tough. Championship, it always goes up through the levels compared to league. So I think all the boys are in a good place. I think training's been hard, been competitive, and that's what it's all about. So I think we're in a good place.
You mentioned you're working night shifts, are you? How do you balance that with training and a championship game at the weekend?
It's different, put it that way. Night shift is always different. You have to be a bit more militant on yourself, a bit more regimental. You have to be strict with yourself. So, it's very easy to kind of maybe sleep in all day. So you have to make sure you have the alarm clock set and make sure you're strict in getting up and having as much of a normal routine as you can. So it's not too bad during the week. In terms of training during the week, obviously training's in the evening. So it's actually pretty good for training in the evening because you're probably well rested going into training as opposed to having maybe a 12-hour day before that. So in terms of that, it's good. But however, the flip side of that is then weekends you have to change your body clock for games on Sundays and train on Sunday morning. So you'll have to get up early on a Saturday and then to sleep Saturday night. So you have to change your body clock at weekends. But at the end of the day, there's pros and cons.
Listen, we had Kieran Dealey on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that one of the things he wanted more of was London-based players in terms of players like from London, and you're obviously one of those. Would you mind telling me just about how you came to be playing for London?
Well, essentially, obviously, I was born here. My family's Irish. My parents are from like the west of Ireland, Mayo and Sligo, and they moved over here with a young family in 1988. And obviously, I was born over here with my twin sister. So obviously my dad's mad into GAA, he's mad into Gaelic football, and obviously where we're based in West London, in Greenford, There's quite an Irish community, and there's a lot of Irish people around here. So just like any other youngster in Ireland, really, I started playing as a kid when I was 8 years of age, and just kept going through the age groups up to senior, and that's how I got here, really.
So London, is your county? That's the county you would have grown up supporting as well, is it?
Yeah, definitely. Look, that's all I know, really, isn't it? It's where I'm born. It's where I've played. It's basically who I've watched since I was a kid. So it's kind of the only county I can really refer to, you know. So yeah, it is my county, and I've been going out to these games what's on Sunday since I was a kid, and you know, watching London play all the various different Connaught counties. So yeah, definitely London is a team I've supported.
And then growing up, was it always a dream to play for London, or were you interested in any other sports as well?
Obviously I played football, soccer. I played that as a kid as well. But I got to probably around maybe 15, 16, and you know, I probably preferred Gaelic football. I was better at it as well, which obviously helped. So when I was going out to games when I was maybe a teenager, 14, 15, 16, I was probably going out to the games hoping one day that I'll be out there playing, and thankfully it came, really.
Yeah. Listen, looking back on your league campaign, it was pretty good. You finished 5th, 3 points. How were you happy both as a team and as an individual?
Yeah, look, it was a solid league campaign. I think we probably would have liked to have maybe got another win if we could have. We had a few close games, and we were competitive in every league game, really. So I was happy with that, and it was solid. But yeah, we probably would have liked to have maybe got another win. But look, we didn't, and we learned a lot from the league campaign. And we brought that into the training camp over the last 5 weeks. And as I said before, training's gone through the roof again. So I think we're in a good place at the moment.
Between balancing work and a championship this week, how does this week look for you? Like, could you chart out maybe Monday to Sunday what your plan is, or how you prepare for Sunday now?
I try and relax as much as I can. Obviously, I've still got work. I work nights, so tonight's my last night shift. So
okay, yeah.
I've taken a few days holiday to try and adjust my body clock, really. So tonight's my last shift, and then I'm on holidays for a few days. So yeah, in terms of everything else, it's just relax. You know, make sure you get the right food into you, plenty of water. Obviously, we'll have a few training sessions within that, and just get a feel for the ball, and you know, just get repetition in and kick in, and just make sure you're as comfortable as you can be for Sunday, you know?
Yeah. What is it you do? What do you work at?
I work on the underground, so I do signal engineering on the underground.
So are they?
So I do signaling.
Are they understanding of your GA career?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
My manager wouldn't really know what Gaelic football is. You'd have a couple of maybe Irish people, Irish descent up in the hierarchy. And they obviously understand it and they know, but on a whole, yeah, most people within my work wouldn't really know about Gaelic football. So it's obviously different to maybe when you're playing in Ireland and you're playing for your county in Ireland, everyone will know. And if you go to work, everybody's probably talking about it. Whereas over here, I go to training and then I go to work, and you know, nobody would ask me, or nobody has any real interest, or anybody who doesn't really know what Gaelic football is, so it is different.
Great stuff there. That's Liam Gavigan, the London captain from London.
Yeah, you can find some of it. He's one of those, you know, the way we talk about the Ronaldo and Messi. One's a scorer of prolific goals and the other's a prolific goal scorer. Liam Gavigan is a scorer of prolific points. He's got a few great scores.
Prolific's the wrong word there, Mark.
Oh yeah, I suppose it's wonderful, whatever the word is. Tremendous points and goals. You can see them on balls.
Great would have been the word.
Yeah, it's grand. So yeah, he's very good. He's got some good scores, good highlights up on balls. You can find them. People record them on their phones at London games, and I'm sure you'll have more this weekend. And
also the full interview will be up on site on Saturday, I think, before the game, and you can read that there on balls.ie. Very interesting to hear. I have to say, and New York have a couple that are playing as well that I think we might even try and get on, especially if they beat Leitrim this weekend. But very interesting to hear London players with London accents and, you know, New York players with American accents playing for their teams. I think it's brilliant, and it feels like it's come a long, long way in a short time.
Yeah, maybe we're moving toward, in 100 years, this is the first step toward an International Gaelic Games World Cup, which we'll probably win.
See, I don't know. I'd worry about us getting too confident about that, because I think if these games take off, people will get better than us eventually, you know?
Yeah, that's a uniquely... By the way, that might be the most pessimistic thing I've ever heard an Irish person ever say. These are our games, the native games that we've discovered.
England aren't the best football team.
The men of Ireland were hurling before when the gods of Greece were young or something. So we've been playing it that long. And then in 100 years, we reckon the world will catch up and probably beat us.
100 years is a long time, though.
We probably wouldn't even qualify for
there might not even be a World
Cup of GA. We'd lose in the playoff.
Well, look, England haven't qualified for World Cups before. That's all I'm
handball,
saying.
Ref, handball. Yeah,
hurling and football
are... Oh, right, sorry.
They're as great a sports as there is in the world, and I could see it taking off and us just being left behind in a sad sort of way, and we're just looking at the All-Ireland Championship will become like the club championship.
Yeah.
And we'd kind of only be half paying attention to it.
Yeah, we might have to go back to handball.
Out to about it.
They genuinely would change the GAA to a Champions League style format.
In the European Champions League,
Champions League.
But anyway, as we mentioned, it's great to hear those guys speaking with their own, or speaking as they're from there. Like, we got in, do you remember we got in the match report from the London hurling game?
Yeah.
We can't remember his actual name. We called him Danny.
He never sent his actual name. That was
yeah. I think he got in touch with us after again, though. But, so sorry, Danny, that we've forgotten your name again. But, he kind of, the way he sent us a few texts, like it was if he didn't even have Irish connections. Like, he might have, obviously, but I don't think it was close. I think it was just that he started supporting his local London team who played near him, and that is just fantastic. I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah, the same thing as Liam was saying in the interview about just, grew up in London, there is county, so why would he support anybody else? Do you know that?
Yeah. France rugby legend Serge Betson, surprising hurling fan, lives beside a GA club in London.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That was another story you can read on
the
Reputable Sports
I'm on the wrong
website, balls.ie.
1927, 1994, there'll be Leitrim people all over Ireland, perhaps all over the world, with tears in the eyes, celebrating the return of the College Championship. The cup goes to lovely Leitrim.
What do you think, lads? Can London beat Sligo this weekend?
I'm going for an Exiles double, I have to say. Although Sligo, I thought I underrated Sligo. They started Division 3 very, very poorly, and then eventually pulled it out of the fire and stayed up with relative comfort at the end. But I don't
think they lost any of their last 4 games.
No,
I think they won 2 and drew 2.
But I'm very biased as to who we've had on this podcast, and we've had pretty much all of the London backroom staff and staff on so far.
Between Shane Gear and
we just did Liam on there. So I'm going for an Exiles double, London and New York.
I was checking out the Sligo team. I've got Laois on the brain today. The Sligo team for the weekend, and I was like, where the hell is Brendan Egan? And there's 2 things I discovered. 1, Brendan Egan is much, much older than you imagine he is. And 2...
Hope you're listening, Brendan.
And 2...
Sorry, Brendan.
2 is that Brendan Egan is a PhD and is working in either DCU or UCD, sorry, I can't remember which. But he was the first ever, I would say, inter-county GAA player to have a TED Talk. He's really interested in TED Talk on the research they've done on muscles and the fact that just because you exercise twice a day, once a day, twice a day, whatever it is, because of the fact we sit down so much now as a human race, that we're so much more susceptible to muscle-based diseases and whatnot.
Lovely.
And I'm telling you, I'm not doing it justice. It's really interesting.
Thanks for that, Mark, as we sit down, record this podcast.
So grim. Oh my God.
So he goes, so this is I asked Mark a question, who would win between London and Sligo, and he told me about muscle-based diseases that I'm probably gathering as we speak.
What I meant to say is that Brendan Egan has retired from Sligo football. He's going to be a big loss to them, and they're going to have to replace him there at centre back. There's going to be a hole there for them when they go into play London. But I feel that his retirement didn't warrant enough. He didn't get enough acclamation, and because of that, we should all go and watch his TED Talk because he deserves attention.
Okay, fair enough. I think that Sligo will actually win that game. I think that.
Okay.
I'm kind of with you though, Gavin. I definitely have a soft spot for Kieran. Truly madly Kieran Deely after his interview with us, and as we mentioned, we did speak to half the team and half the backroom team, but I kind of think Sligo might be just a little bit too strong for them. I do think that New York will beat Leitrim though.
Yeah.
I feel it. I think that Jamie Clark is just too good a player to add to what was already considered a close game.
Yeah, Emma Mulligan's back starting for Leitrim.
Yeah.
And my man Rooney, whose name Dara Rooney. I tell you, young lad. He's the up and coming. He's the new Emma Mulligan.
Okay.
The next Emma Mulligan.
Tony Johnston. Tony Johnston. What's that coming over the hill? Is it Tony Johnston? Is it Tony Johnston?
So we'll see what happens in those games. We'll talk about them next week. But the rest of the championship isn't that far behind. As you mentioned earlier, PJ Brown was down in Trim today for the Leinster Senior Football Championship launch, where he spoke to a load of people who, and as Leinster outside of Dublin are basically all weaker counties, we'll be hearing from a good few of them over the next couple of weeks. But we wanted to start today with the Louth manager and former Down All-Ireland winner, two-time All-Ireland winner, manager Pete McGrath.
Well, yeah, the league was obviously difficult for Louth. 7 defeats, a couple of heavy defeats. But as that league was going on, and we were looking at our match analysis in the days after each game, for every one of the matches, there were quite significant chunks of each game where the team played very well. Where we matched, and in some cases more than matched, the teams we were playing against. And possibly what was a factor in the outcome of a number of matches was that going into the last quarter, teams were able to maybe introduce a certain calibre of player that we didn't have in terms of our strength and depth. There were a number of key men missing because of injuries, and in a smaller county where your pick is quite finite, then that's going to maybe bite more than other counties that have more extensive pools of players to draw from. So it was a very sharp learning curve for a lot of our players, a sharp learning curve for myself as team manager. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I certainly feel that our team has come through the league, come out the other end, and we have learned a lot. And I think the younger players particularly have experienced football at quite a high level, and they'll be better for it. And going towards the championship, I can assure you, morale is high. There's positivity, there's enthusiasm, there's confidence, and we're looking forward to that game against Carlow in 10 days' time.
At the end of your term, where would you like to feel out? What is your aim for that?
Well, I suppose when you come from outside into a county, it's going to take a period of time to get a handle on players. To me, most of the Louth players were complete strangers. I didn't know them individually or even by repute in many cases. So you come in and you get a group together and you're assessing them and you are cajoling them, you're coaching them, you're trying to guide them along a certain route. Objectives, targets. I would like to think that whenever I leave Louth, that the county team will be in a good place, that the jersey will be in a better place, and that's a journey. And like any journey, you'll have forks in the road, you'll have dips in the road, you'll have highs, you'll have lows, and it's a question really of getting a group of players who will stick together, who will work hard to achieve, unity and a sense of purpose. And how far that leads, I can't tell. Nobody can tell. That's sport. That's the unpredictability of it. But I would certainly like to think that when at the end of the term, whenever that is, that people look back and say, yeah, the county team and Louth football has progressed. It's in a better place now than it was when that man came. And whatever that would be, well, that remains to be seen.
Do you think you got to know those players? You said you didn't really know much about them when you came in. Now do you feel like you...
Still learning. Still learning, to be honest. Because you can't go into a situation where you've got 30 plus players in front of you You're meeting them for the first time. You're getting to know them as people, as players. You're getting to know what the dynamic is. You're getting to know what the culture is, what the expectations are, what players expect of themselves, what their individual ambitions are. So it's trying to pull all that together, and that does take time. It was the same with me in Fermanagh. I was there a full season before I really came to terms with, this is what these guys are about, this is what they can do, this is what they might aspire to. So, and it'll take the same in Louth.
Pete, people who support the idea of a two-tier championship look at Leinster and say, well, Dublin are so dominant there, that's one of the reasons why we should have won. Like they'll say, look at your double header in Portleigh, San Carlo and Offaly Wicklow. They say, sure, those 4 teams can't win Leinster, they'd be better off in a tier 2 competition where they have a serious chance of winning silverware. What's your idea on that argument, and from being involved with the Louth lads, is not being in the Leinster Championship something they'd be totally against?
Yeah, I would say you would find universally across the country that players from practically every county would have no interest in or very little enthusiasm for a tiered championship. You see, I said this guy Sam Maguire has an awful lot to answer for. He really has, because that name and what the Sam Maguire is, that's what every Gaelic footballer aspires to. And we all appreciate that in any given year one team's going to win it, and we all also appreciate that there are teams in the country and their chances of winning it now or next year or in 3 years' time are very marginal. But that's irrelevant, because sport is about aspiring, it's about ambition, it's about romance, it's about unpredictability, and the reality is, in my view, that if you had a tiered championship, you could have players going through their entire football career at county level, and they would never play for Sam Maguire. They would be stuck in a second tier or third tier for maybe their entire career, and I think that would be an awful indictment. So I think every player has that. It's almost a right that he has. It's almost something that players are. It's an entitlement, and I think the GAA has already gone down the road of trying to what I call sanitise Gaelic football. The Super 8 should make sure that the best 8 are there. Sport isn't about that. If they're going to be there, fine, but I think romance, unpredictability, the underdog, the unexpected, if you try and reduce that and take that out of sport, then sport becomes like every other aspect of life then. Sanitised, organised, predictable. We don't want that. I don't want it.
So is that what makes that double header, is that what makes that special? I mean, people will say, Carlo Louth, Offaly Wicklow, they don't have a hope of winning Leinster. But in those 4 dressing rooms on that particular day, is it the romantic thing? Anything is possible in the first
round? Yes, and anything is possible. And I always think, sometimes we, as players, or as managers, or as, let's say, so-called smaller counties, we allow others, and sometimes as you guys in the media, you guys put a ceiling on how far Louth can go. You do it. And I don't accept that. The only people who put ceilings on players are themselves. And if we listen to people saying that Louth have no chance, and Carlo have no chance, and Meath have no chance because of Dublin, or because of or Ulster, Fermanagh have no chance, or so-and-so has no chance. Well, if at the end of the day, that's others telling you how far you can go, and I'd never accept that, and players should never accept that. Let's lift that ceiling. Let's work to be the very, very best we can be, and how far that can take us, nobody knows. You can have your opinion and you can rationalise it, but nobody knows for sure, because this is sport, and this is the whole area of something that can be unpredictable and unexpected. And if you try and take that out of it, then it becomes an awful lot duller. And I think a second tier or a third tier championship would be dull, very dull. And I don't think it would excite, and I don't think it would inspire players to commit to months and months of training to play in that type of environment. That's my view on it.
Is the Super 8 going to increase the gap between the 8 elite teams and the teams below them? It's going to put more of an emphasis on them like that big kind of different time of the year.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And the teams that make it to the so-called Super 8, within that elite group, the stronger of those 8 have got a massive advantage because of their depth of panels that they've got. You could have teams getting into the Super 8 as such, and maybe their panels are much more restricted. Now, on a given one-off day, they can beat a bigger team. But over the 3 matches in the group stage of the Super 8, I think the stronger will certainly surface because of their greater strength in depth. And again, that's okay in one sense, but it's sanitising the thing again, which I think is not maybe what we're looking for in sport. I'm not a naive romantic, by the way, but I still think that there's a place for that kind of daring to dream, and on a given day, I mean, look what Tipperary did a number of years ago, getting to an All-Ireland semi-final. Okay, I mean, if that Tipperary team had been in a Super 8, they would not have got to an All-Ireland semi-final. They would have been, if you like, clawed back by the 3 matches. So that's unlikely to happen now. And I'm not being utterly against the Super 8. There are certain advantages in it, but I think it's just an awful pity that we are maybe taking away from that stage of the championship the sudden death element. That on the day, this is it. You got to go out, you got to do it today because it's a trapdoor and there's no safety net. The Super 8, and the other thing is that Super 8 might have dead rubbers. 2 teams playing in the final series of matches can't get through. That'll get the pulses racing. It really will.
Carlo, not a lot of headlines this year for the progress they've made.
Yeah.
What specific challenge will they pose?
Carlo, obviously, last summer, had a good run in the qualifiers, and they got promotion this year. They're obviously a county where there is currently a lot of enthusiasm for the county team. They are currently enjoying a kind of a winning mindset, you could say. They got promotion. They will be obstinate. They will be highly competitive. They'll be very well organised, and that's something that we have to face up to and deal with. But like any championship game, it's going to be about character. It's going to be about courage. It's going to be about people dealing with the occasion, and players making right decisions and not being caught up in the ebb and flow of the game. So it's going to be, and I mean, our morale is very high. The team has worked very hard. The panel of players I've got are talented. The age profile is quite low. They're a young side, but we're looking forward to the challenge that Carlow will present, and we don't in any way underestimate how good we'll have to be on the day to get over them. They will be formidable, and I think we will be formidable as well.
So it's Pete McGrath, the Loud manager, speaking to PJ Brown earlier on today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This second-tier championship thing, I mean, we've been over it so many times in this podcast alone, never mind the discussion that goes on in general around the GA, and I keep flip-flopping on it. Like when you listen to Pete there and how passionately he talks about not wanting a second-tier championship and the fact that lads might go through their entire career without ever playing for Sam Maguire. I'm kind of like, no, let the kids play. We don't need a 2-tier one. But then next week I completely change my opinion depending on who gets
I'm the same,
answer.
actually. I find I'm the highly suggestible type when it comes to the GEA championship structure. It's whoever has the strongest argument and feels the most passionate about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of gone off it. The 2-tier thing.
And you were the biggest champion.
I'm currently very cold in it. And it's from doing this podcast, I have to say. Like, I'm treading over old ground here, but like we've seen these counties and these lower games ignored for so long.
Yeah.
Why would they suddenly be given prime time and the dazzling lights and the big nights and when they're split into a lower competition?
Yeah.
And how would it survive if it's not given that?
I just don't think that they have dazzling lights or whatever at the moment, to be honest. You know, I don't think that's...
But they might accidentally wander into...
to be
extend
beaten by Dublin by 30 points.
Stadium at some point.
Yeah.
Whereas... I don't know. Like currently, like broadly the idea is good, but practically, ultimately, I'm not sure if it would be for the better of the players involved, and ultimately, it should really be about the players and those participating, rather than us in the media fans sitting on their couch accumulating muscle diseases watching on.
Also, though, like, I mean, obviously, the Pete McGrath thing, they don't play until next weekend coming, but that is a serious weekend of so-called Weaker County action in the championship. That's when it really kicks off. And speaking of things like in the tier championships, like one that won't get an awful lot of attention is in the hurling in the Joe McDonagh Cup. Antrim against Carlow is going to be a humdinger of a game. That's on Saturday the 12th of May. So like that's like they're the kind of games that you don't hear anything about in the media. You're going to probably hear about who is it? It's Offaly against Galway in the Leinster Hurling Championship. That's starting that same again, so that'll warrant all the attention. But that's a massive game in itself. Tyrone against Donegal and the Nicky Rackard. Wicklow against Mayo. Can Mayo continue their form from the league after getting promoted? So there's loads of interesting games on there. Down against Armagh as well in the Christie Ring.
So we'll talk about all them next week, I guess. Just finally on Pete McGrath, I just think that you hear the kind of passion the way he talks for the game, and it's just you could say what you like about kind of managers going off to different counties and the I don't know what you'd call them, the mercenary managers or whatever, not in a non-financial way, but like I think it's great that people like Pete McGrath are still involved. Like obviously his time came and went with Down, but why would you not have that man involved in the national GAA picture, you know?
100%. And I think even like his passion and interest for it is like you could listen to him talk all day. PG even said that when he was chatting to him, he had to literally just pry himself away from Pete because he had to interview everybody else. But even when he was manager for Man, I remember people saying before that, like, you know, they were always trying to chase him to get him to fill out his expense forms and all that, because it wasn't that kind of mercenary thing. He just loves managing football teams and trying to, like he said, leave Louth in a better place, that they could say that man brought his own.
Yeah. We were talking to Conor Deegan, who won 2 All-Irelands with him at Down before, and just about the kind of character he is, and he said that like he's just somebody that he couldn't imagine having more respect for a man. You know, that he just, like, you always just felt like that he just lived and died, that he had nothing else in his life but football. Like, I'm sure he does, and he has his family and all, but that's how they felt in there as when he was the manager, and that it was just, he gave everything in him to that team, and they just couldn't have respected him more for it. And I love hearing from people like that who have such passion that we unfortunately don't have as we sit here collecting our muscle diseases. Maybe we should get out and train more often. Although first Mark drives up and down to Cavan.
Well, that was Brendan's point.
Sitting in his car.
Brendan's point was that you could train once a day, early in the morning, late in the evening. It doesn't matter if you're sitting 7 hours a day. So
I don't know what we could do about that, to be honest.
What I'm picking up from this is there's actually no point in training. You might as well accept the fate that's been dealt to you sitting at your desk.
Well, you have to
stand up all day at work and then not do any training.
You have to watch the full TED Talk to discover how you can fix yourself.
On that note, we will be back with a regular weekly podcast from now on. This so-called weaker podcast will actually be weekly as the GAA Championships actually kick into gear. So kind of creeping in this week with these 2 games. But then, as Mark mentioned, there's just a million fixtures across football and hurling starting the following week. So we'll be trying to keep up with it all as we did during the league, sometimes unsuccessfully. But I hope you're along for the journey, and thanks for joining us today.